Yo, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Now, we all know that Khamzat Chimaev versus Dricus du Plessis is one of the biggest fights that's going to go down this year. We're going to go ahead and talk about that today. And one of the things that nobody seems to be mentioning, but before we do, all I ask is for you guys to go ahead and subscribe to the channel, leave a like, leave a comment, and without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the discussion. Now, Khamzat Chimaev versus Dricus du Plessis is definitely going to be a very interesting fight. Personally, I do think that this is going to be one of the sloppiest fights we're ever going to see in the middleweight history. We all know how chaotic both of these guys can be, and I think that this is going to be a really good fight for the middleweight division in terms of entertainment. But one of the things that nobody seems to be talking about is the fact that I think that Dricus du Plessis might have the advantage in this fight. Everybody seems to be saying that Khamzat Chimaev has some of the greatest wrestling in the entire UFC, which could be true, but we all know that he is deficient on one thing, or there could be a possibility that he is deficient on one thing, and that of course is his cardio. You know, we've seen a couple of instances where Khamzat Chimaev kind of does seem to fade away into fights, especially since we know that Khamzat Chimaev likes to be aggressive, and he likes to be super active, and he likes to throw down in the 50-50 and be a super aggro fighter. We know that he tends to tire out a lot, like we saw in the Gilbert Burns fight, like we saw in the Kamaru Usman fight. You know, especially in the Kamaru Usman fight, a lot of people were saying that if that was a 5-rounder, we probably even see Kamaru Usman win in that fight, because it kind of did seem like Khamzat Chimaev was fading away, especially in the last couple of rounds in that fight. And I would just like to point out that that's probably why we do see Khamzat Chimaev be so aggressive in the early rounds, just looking for takedowns and just looking to finish the fight, because maybe there's an entire game plan designed around the fact that he knows, and maybe his coaching team knows, that Khamzat Chimaev doesn't have the best cardio, so he has to go ahead and be aggro and be aggressive and try to finish the fight as quickly as possible. Case in point with Robert Whittaker, you know, he wasted no time trying to finish that fight, and it was a very impressive performance, where usually we would see, you know, a lot of other guys that are highly ranked fighters kind of take their time, not really, you know, trying to take any crazy chances. But is the complete opposite with Khamzat Chimaev? Is it because he saw an opening, or is it because he knows that there has to be a game plan designed around the fact that he might not, you know, be as effective in the later rounds? So that's why he has to be a super aggressive aggro fighter in the first couple of rounds. You know, we could kind of say the same thing about Dricus du Plessis, but not as much. The last time that we really saw Dricus du Plessis kind of fade into a fight was when he fought Derek Brunson, which already by round 3, this guy was already breathing extremely freaking heavy. He did kind of fade a little bit in the Sean Strickland fight, the one that happened most recently, where we did see him kind of slow down in rounds 3, 4, and 5, and we did see him slow down in rounds 3 against Israel Adesanya, but is not as much, or I think he doesn't have as much of an issue in cardio, you know, compared to Khamzat. You know, Khamzat's style is completely surrounded around wrestling, and that might be the biggest reason as to why, you know, I personally do think that there is a cardio issue that nobody seems to be, you know, kind of mentioning out there. You know, everybody says that Khamzat Chimaev is a super aggressive fighter. He doesn't shy away from exchanges, and that's the main thing that makes him a threat, which is true, but it could be a double-edged sword type of scenario, because if he just is able to hang with Dricus du Plessis, especially going into the later rounds, I think that, you know, that might hinder him, you know, in the championship level rounds. You know, at the end of the day, I really do feel like this is probably going to be a very ugly fight. It's going to be a brawl without a doubt. So I definitely do think that the biggest deciding factor, if they just throw IQ out the door, is who has the better cardio. You know, that's what I honestly do believe. And in my honest opinion, that might be Dricus. It actually might be Dricus, you know? So if that's the case, Khamzat Chimaev might have to be very aggressive coming off the rib. Like coming off, you know, the stool, going into round 1, he probably should try to be as aggressive as possible and try to end the fight as early as possible. Because if you ask me personally, I do think that Dricus might have the better cardio slightly, in my honest opinion. But yeah, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Do you guys agree, disagree? I cannot wait to read your comments. As always, it was a pleasure. Peace out and have a good one.